filming, you know, right? Just because.
Well, have a look. We've stood up some sections of boat. So far, we've got 4 sections stood here. Obviously, it's upside down. I guess that's clear. You see that? Good. So Hayes was just having a look round there. Can you come back out for a minute, Hayes? All stood upside down, that's the way it is. We're looking at station 9 here, which is the main entranceway there, the engine hatch. Going through there, through to station 6. And we've got the shear clamp, chine log and shear clamp roughly in position. They're not glued in, they're just screws in there at the moment, holding it in place. So to set it up, the important things are, remember that we marked the centre line and the water lines on these panels. So water line here, centre line here, on all panels. It is important that the centre line is directly above the centre line that I've marked on the floor. So perhaps I should go back a step. Our strongback here, this is 8 metres long. Okay, you got that, Hazel? 8 metres long. 2 pieces of Doug fir. I've used Doug fir so that I can, when I finish with the strongback, I can use the wood in the boat construction. 8 metres long. 1 metre wide. I've got some pieces of red pine going between it, holding, and those are 1 metre wide. So the gap is 1 metre. I've made sure it's parallel to our lofting lines. So it's fitted on the floor, square, parallel to the lofting lines. And I've drawn a centre line, that one there, black one, up the middle of it. Here's our centre line. Which means that to set up, what we've got to do is we've got to make sure all of these panels are centred on the centre line. The centre line of the panel is directly above the centre line on the floor. Okay, that means that they're centred, of course. Then we put a spirit level on them to make sure that they're upright, not leaning in or out. Yeah, and that's basically it. And then the next thing to check is that the tops of the floor beams, which remember it's upside down, so it's the bottom of the floor beam as we look, they should all be level. And I've set it up so that they are all level. And what that means is, if I've built the panels right, that should be correct. But to check that for sure means we can check that all of our water lines are at the same level. And the water line is the ultimate thing, you know, that's the thing that proves that it's correct. The water line should all be level. I bought this, I think I showed you before, didn't I? This 3 metre long spirit level, which is quite useful for levelling things up. But also I use my eye quite a lot. You can get in position and you can just cast your eye along. For example, I can see here, I can see the water line on 9. You can't see that with a camera, don't even bother trying. I can see it on 9, 8 and 6. And I can line those up by eye and I can tell that they're all perfectly in line. So one thing I would recommend for me when I do these things, now remember this is the first boat that I've ever, no, first big boat I've ever built. It's the 4th boat I've ever built, but first big boat. But I have done quite a lot of fitting out of boats and built galleys and fitted out the entire inside of Miss Miley when I did that. And I use my eye quite a lot, and I think we can see quite a lot if things are in line. If we look at, for example, the upright there of the engine hatch, we can line that up with the uprights of the posts there. If you just stand back, you probably will get that on the camera, Hazel. If you line that line up through to the post on station 6 there, you'll see that they're bang on, or at least extremely close. No, they're pretty much bang on. And trust your eye, and line things up by eye. You can check that everything's parallel by standing and looking at it. And really need to trust our eyes on these things. Anyhow, that's where we are. 4 panels. We can go inside. We'll just crawl inside now through the entranceway. Can you get through that, Hazel? Oh, no, just lean in. That's good. Just lean in like that. So, you already start to get a picture of the size of the boat. We're looking here. This is the galley. Lovely big galley. I'm pleased. It's upside down, remember, but this is the galley area, and I can already picture having an L-shaped galley. The stove will be in here, worktop upside down, but worktop in here, stove, worktop coming around here, the sink here, nice L-shaped galley. Fits in there lovely. It's a big galley. It's great. Over here, this side, this is the head, the shower and toilet area. Plenty big enough. Happy. Looks good. Will be a very simple shower, but toilet in here with some kind of shower facility. In here, this is Going to come through to a bunk. This will be a removable flap here, but a bunk there, and again it's big enough to get in, it's fine. The bunk will go through that way. So looking good. Head area. Yeah, and obviously here we'll be going through into the settee's saloon area. So that's where we are. I think I've decided that I'm going to get a couple of boards and screw them to the floor beams running through the entire length of the main cabin area, which will be double the length that it is now. This is half of the main cabin. I think that would be useful to do, just a couple of pine boards or something. But that's where we stand now. Next job, I believe I'm going to get the detailer out and stand up the next, this is 6, so it'll be 5, 4 and 3, the next 3 sections, which is the main cabin area of the boat. Get those up and then fix the chine log and shear clamp around. I'll come out again and just look at one more thing here. So here's the shear clamp. So I've cut this scarf joint on there, or the angle for the start of the scarf, it's not a joint yet. The scarf, I've used an 8:1, so 8 times the thickness of the wood up there on an angle, and obviously the piece that joins on there will have the opposite. And so with an 8:1 joint, basically we've got a strong scarf joint, plenty strong enough. Remember that the shear clamp chine log will be 2 layers of this dug fir, so obviously that joint will come there, the other one will overlap with that joint in the middle of it, so that'll be nice and strong. The problem we have now is that, I say this every week it seems, but this week has again been the coldest week of the year, and it's now so cold that I don't feel happy gluing anything that's structural on the boat. Gluing something inside the boat's one thing. If it falls off, you can always glue it back on, but gluing structural pieces of the boat, they need to be done correctly. So these scarf joints, I'm not going to glue them until it's warmed up a bit. So basically we've gone almost as far as we can in this weather. We'll see. Hopefully in a week or so it will get a bit warmer and we can get on. I'm shivering down here now. But yeah, we shall wait up before we move on from here. And that's where we'll stop here for as far as we've got. I think it's starting to look quite good. I'll say I'm pleased with the size of it all. Yeah, good. We'll cut there. Okay, it's time to do a Tony's tool tip, I think. And I thought this time I'd show you the tool that I probably use the most, to be honest with you. Anything for finishing off. I've sort of mentioned it before a few videos back, but this is a good one, I think. This is the Bosch, I think it's a PEX125, I do believe, orbital sander. You will notice already that the tools I've shown you aren't particularly adventurous or difficult. The tools that I use on this build are fairly standard, normal tools, you know. So far we've had the circular saw, we've had the planer and the orbital sander. I'm going to say this about the orbital sander. First of all, it probably doesn't matter if it's Bosch or any other make, but I always use the Bosch ones. I think they're brilliant. The orbital sander is by far the best sander out there. I see people using those things for this with the rectangular pad that you put a bit of sandpaper on. Awful bloody things. I see people using belt sanders, awful bloody things. The orbital sander is a brilliant sander for sanding wood. I can't imagine using, I can't see any other reason to use any other sort of sander, with the exception perhaps of those triangular pad ones for fiddly little corners. But the orbital sander is the only sander that you really need. Anything else you could do by hand. And they are fantastic. You can sand anything with them. So, my tip to you is chuck all the other ones away and buy an orbital. This is 125mm diameter. It spins and it's got a sort of bearing effect, so it doesn't just turn round and round and round. They sand randomly, so you don't get scratch marks on your wood from them. They're great tools. The sandpaper fits on there with Velcro, like that. The pads, yeah, fairly expensive. I've got a few here. Normally I buy the cheap ones from the do-it-yourself shop, not the Bosch proper ones. I'm sure the Bosch proper ones are best, but the do-it-yourself shop ones are okay. And these I experimented with. I got these from eBay. No, I didn't. I got these from Amazon, excuse me. There's a lot of 50 or 100 in one pack, fairly cheap, and they're okay. They're not the best, but they're okay. They last reasonably, and the Velcro seems to be okay. So that's what I use. And I only ever use 80 grit. You can get 40 grit, 80, 120, whatever. But I use 80 all the time. I don't use any other grit. For me, it gives me a fine finish on wood. I don't see any need for any other grit at all. Obviously, when they've worn down a bit, it's a bit less abrasive. I get a fine finish up. And if I'm preparing something for varnish or whatever, 80 grit, then your first coat of varnish will be a thin 50-50 thin varnish. Get it on there. That raises the grain again, and then just give it a flick over by hand with some hand sandpaper. Great. So for me, 80 grit is what I use all the time. The only pads I buy. These are marvellous, as I said. This one, there's varying ones. This one has the switch at the front, as you can see, which is so you don't have to hold it, squeezing it all the time, which the older Bosch ones had, that you had to hold the trigger all the time. So this is an on-off switch that stays on when you switch it on. Yeah, an improvement. If you sand into a corner, that switch bangs on a piece of wood and it switches itself off. Yeah. Not a major issue. They come with a dust filter that goes on there, like that. It claims to be a micro filter system. They fill up fairly quickly, but what you can do is you can bang the dust out of them. Give them a good bang. You see that? See that? Wood flour. That you can use for thickening epoxy. Brilliant stuff. So I generally collect that in a tub, bang it out every now and again, collect that for wood flour for thickening epoxy. I'm going to throw this bit away. But it's great for thickening epoxy, so an extra bonus from the orbital sander. And that's probably about all there is to say. This is quite a nice one-hand sander, so you can work like that. No, one more thing. You'll hear a lot of people say that you should always use these flat, never tip them. And if you're making a piece of fine, French polished furniture, that's probably true. But really, for boat work, if you've got a tricky bit, let's be honest, we tip them a bit, don't we? We do tip and use the edge a bit. Mainly you should use it flat, this is true, but sometimes a little bit of an edge isn't a bad thing to do. Like any tool, you've got to use it with your eyes open, you've got to use it with feeling, and if you do that, you can tip them a bit, let's be honest. Yeah, great tool. And that, the Bosch PEX125, is Tony's tool tip number 3. Cut.
red tears in the sunset, standing at the sea. Tell me where you're going so decisively. What's your destination? Tell me where you're bound. We can move together where adventures abound.